For most people, the first images that come to mind when they hear the name Kelly Ripa are bright studio lights, contagious laughter, and a woman who has come to dominate morning television with seemingly inexhaustible energy. But as she settles onto a sofa in a quiet corner of her New York home, away from the glittering sets, the makeup chairs, and the frenetic pace of live TV, Ripa looks softer, more reflective. She stirs a cup of tea, the faint clink of the spoon the only sound between us for a moment. People sometimes forget, she begins with a small smile, that before the talk shows and producing and everything else, I was an actress. Her voice doesn't carry nostalgia so much as a kind of wistful acknowledgement, like someone looking through a window at a former version of herself, waving from another life. Ripa's acting career, though overshadowed by her enormous success in hosting, was groundbreaking in its own right. Her role as Haley Vaughn on All My Children made her a daytime household name and landed her in the hearts of a generation that watched Haley grow from wild-hearted teen to complicated adult. She went on to add sitcom work, guest spots, and film roles to her resume. Acting was her first creative love, the one that drew her into entertainment in the first place. So why did she walk away from it? The answer, she explains slowly, is both simpler and far more emotional than most people assume. The moment everything shifted, there wasn't one big dramatic event, she says. It was more like a moment I didn't even realize was a moment until years later. It happened during the filming of a comedy pilot, a project she was excited about, one she believed had real potential. Her kids were still young, and her schedule was a juggling act held together with determination and caffeine. On the day in question, she had been filming long hours on set, hosting her show in the morning, and squeezing in family time whenever she could. Even for someone known for her work ethic, it was a punishing stretch. I came home one night, around midnight, she recalls, and one of the kids had left this drawing on the kitchen counter. It was a picture of me, very cute, very stick figure, but the caption said, "Mommy lives on TV." She pauses. That's what did it, that one sentence. The drawing is still tucked in a box somewhere, she explains, its childish scrawl more powerful than any performance review or ratings chart. Kids see truth before adults do, she says. They say it without meaning to, and because of that, it hits even harder. She felt, for the first time, that something in her life was skewed. I had been acting for years, and I was used to the grind, she says. But suddenly I realized the grind wasn't just mine anymore, it was theirs. Acting requires disappearing, and she was done disappearing. Ripa loved acting. She still does. It's storytelling in its purest form, she says. You get to step out of yourself, try on different lives, feel things you wouldn't otherwise feel. But that was the problem. When you're acting, she explains, you have to disappear into someone else. And somewhere along the line, I realized I didn't want to disappear anymore. Not from my kids, and honestly, not from myself. Television hosting allowed her to show up as Kelly. Acting required her to be everyone but Kelly. I didn't want my children to remember a version of me that was always halfway somewhere else, she says. I wanted them to know me, not the characters. She doesn't present the decision as a sacrifice, more like an evolution. She still considers herself an actor at heart, but she no longer feels compelled to chase roles or prove anything through performance. It was like this internal shift, she says. I suddenly felt okay stepping back. It didn't feel like quitting, it felt like choosing. A complicated kind of grief still, stepping back didn't come without emotion. It's a strange kind of grief, she admits. Acting was my dream as a kid. I mean, the dream. To let go of that, even gently, means letting go of a part of your identity. For years, she avoided scripts that came her way, telling herself she was simply too busy, but really, she says, it hurt to say no, so I pretended the roles weren't right or the timing was off. It took me a long time to say, out loud, I don't want to do this right now. She laughs at the memory of agents trying to coax her into passion projects. They'd call like, Kelly, this is perfect for you. And I'd think, is it? Or am I just supposed to believe that? What filled the space acting left behind if acting took a backseat? It wasn't replaced by a vacuum. Ripa poured herself into producing, hosting, and the creative work behind the camera. Roles that didn't require disappearing but instead required her to be more present than ever. It's funny, she says, because stepping away from acting actually expanded my creative world. I found new ways to tell stories without sacrificing the parts of my life that mattered most. After years of balancing, rushing, and negotiating time, the slowness felt like a revelation. I didn't realize how many moments I was missing until I stopped missing them, she says. School events. Breakfasts. Bedtime jokes. I got to live them, not just hear about them later. Would she ever act again? This is the question fans always ask, and the one Ripa answers without hesitation. Absolutely, she says with a bright grin. But it would have to be the right thing. Something that means something. Something worth disappearing for, but only for a little while. She doesn't rule out returning when her children are older, or when a project captures her imagination in a way she can't resist. She even hints at developing something of her own, a little story that's been brewing, as she puts it. But I don't think acting will ever be my whole world again, she clarifies. I don't need it to be. The real reason, when asked to sum up the emotional reason she stepped back from acting, she takes a long breath. I guess the truth is, I stopped because acting asked me to leave parts of my life I wasn't willing to leave anymore, she says. And for the first time, I loved someone's, more than I loved the job. Then she smiles, warm and unguarded. And that felt like the easiest hard decision I ever made.